The Kid's Theory and Mass. TS034. The vibrations of one mass affect and resonate the other mass, hence the masses know about themselves. This is not convincing. And then right. If we assume that there are no pulling forces, but only pushing forces, that means that the universe expands. It expands in such nonsense. If we assume that the pressure of the universe as the arrows expand along their directions, causes the formation of new space and time, centimeters, events, lengthen and unit time shrinks, that is, time is inversely proportional to space. And the number of dimensions takes over the density of times. When the primary arrow going into the new space is a prime number, and a unit for the time being in statu nascendi for itself, and, at the same time, an individual disorder, time appears at the end, arrowhead, vector edge, or whatever, of this event. If the arrow does not go to the infinity that is then created, but ends its flight and its action by colliding or crossing the flight of another arrow, then at the point of their meeting we have a second number, i.e. the product of events, times, dimensions of space, relative speeds or primal forces. It does not matter if they are measurable and their power is not important. It is the principle of superposition, field polarity, that gives meaning to such concepts. It is important to duplicate unit arrows which, while having different lengths, speeds and events, are all unit arrows. Because they mean one basic event on which time and space are built, and dimensions are produced, first, second, third, fourth, non-time, fifth non-time, sixth with time, etc. As the universe expands and new spaces are built, all free spaces are embraced and filled. The primary filling and the subsequent secondary compaction and intersection of arrows, where the properties of space and time are recreated, are the properties of vortices, i.e. the grandchildren of arrows. Apage sata nase or better. Remember the clay your mother. O sweet Ishtar, lover of my body. These are Barrow's lips, dry with longing for you. The accumulation of these event effects shortens the length of the arrows, shortens the time, shortens the unit time of an elementary event. Secondary arrow releases, second numbers, operate according to the following universal law: I expand where I can. If one basic arrow has mastered one dimension, then another will go in our eyes and understanding at a right angle of 90 degrees to the first, marking the next direction. Even the slightest flutter of the smallest point in space within this point beyond the limits of that point causes, without finding any breaks, an arrow of infinite length, which occurs at an amount of time equal to 0 and covers the entire universe immediately. It has a length of 1 and is a timeless unit factor. The continuous production of new perpendicular dimensions, and the continuous shortening of the seconds of time, units, also causes the secondary production of arrows, as the beginning of a new expansion of the universe, with the primary dimension, equals 1. The pipe has broken and the cats are perfuming the stairs, which is proof that the world is going to destruction. Since this is already happening in the originally created space with known, mutually intersected events, the new arrows do not find, only a few but a few, and do not create the original space. But only, they divide the current one, making in it shorter and shorter cells of events, that is, the shorter the arrows, the more time it will take for the machine, the passage of the same area, because for each movement of the hand or wheel, the same number of individual events is consumed. When the arrows close their actions in such a way that a certain set of them becomes inactive outside for some moment, we say that we are dealing with a mass. If the mass for some reason breaks its chain of closed arrows and becomes active, the mass ceases to be mass and becomes a re-event. A photon is sometimes a wave. Weight doesn't mean space. TS035. The mass wraps around and shortens spaces and time. The mass does not come into contact with the active arrows and is understood as a free thing where space can be developed, so the pressure of the surrounding space presses arrows towards it from all sides. Time in the mass is going very slowly. No, I'm sorry. It should be like this: time in mass passes so fast that a wanderer in mass transformation slows down extremely slowly. This means that it takes an enormous number of elementary events to travel from one end of the mass to the other end to traverse it.